When we focus up more into receiving feed ingredients at a feed mill, that pretty much will be all the ingredients that are needed. Unprocessed grains like corn, sorghum, in some cases rice and wheat. Processed bulk ingredients like DDGs, wheat millings, and then of course all the different soft stocks feed ingredients that are more into the protein portion of the animal diet, like soybean meal, canola meal, palm meal. And then, of course, all the heavy feed ingredients more into the mineral side of things, like salt, calcium, and others. All the liquid ingredients, like we said a little bit earlier, molasses, animal fat, and others. And then the ones that come mainly in bags because of their smaller portion used in animal diets, but that play a key role in terms of the nutrition and performance, all the microingredients like vitamins, enzymes, and other type of synthetic amino acids. When we talk about receiving itself, like it has been mentioned throughout this presentation, some ingredients will come in bags, some will come in bulk. That will depend a lot on the conditions of your location. In some cases, a lot of the feed ingredients will come in bulk, but in some cases, it will be mainly in mixture. What is important to know is that more likely the majority of the microingredients will come in bags that usually are in smaller quantity. In some places around the world, there's some of the ingredients like wheat millings and corn and soy meal that can also come in bags of 100 kilos, 50 kilos, but also in tote bags that could come, as you see here in the picture, on 1 ton or half a ton capacity. It is very important to develop your own procedure for receiving any feed ingredient. That could be part of your quality assurance and quality control program as part of the standard operating procedures. Here's an example of a number of procedures that you could do when receiving any type of feed ingredient. All those specifications will depend a lot on the conditions and logistics that you have in your feed mill in your location. But you could use this as a more of a reference in order to develop your own or check if you already have one. An essential part when you're receiving feed ingredients is very important to check the documentation because that could be a lot of the information that we know. What type of ingredient are we receiving? Who is the supplier? From where it was shipped? How much we're getting into it? And also, of course, its label. Then we can also use and cross-check based on the order of purchase that we have used to check if we're receiving what we ordered. Also, it's very important to know that in some cases, when we're receiving feed ingredients, that documentation will have some information to verify if we're complying with different government regulations. So overall, documentation plays a key role in terms of keeping everything in order in a feed mill because it could help us confirm many things that could then eventually cause us any issues like quality and then of course the amount of feed ingredient that we're receiving. It is very important to have a place to document all that information that we're collecting when receiving any feed ingredient and keep it in a place either manually or printed in a computer, but also electronically on a cloud as much as you can in order to use that data later for any type of issues or problems or when you're trying to make decisions. Among that information they need to collect, of course, is what product you're receiving, the quantity, the supplier, when it was received, all the quality specifications, who receiving in your feed mill, and all the other different type of information that comes from the company itself or the manufacturers, like the lot number. Expiration date is key, especially on drugs or vitamins. And then, of course, from your side, it's very important to make a note where it's going to be stored, either in a warehouse, either bulk in a hopper, or any other place, so you could keep track of it as part of your inventory. Receiving is a key process in your feed mill, like it has been mentioned, but it's also important to note that it's part of a quality assurance and control program. Therefore, you need to have different responsibilities that you need to give to your employees that are receiving all those feed ingredients. They need to be present at all times in order to monitor if there's any contaminant or anything wrong when you're unloading that feed ingredient. The quality has to be checked by doing the proper sampling technique. Also, drivers of those trucks, either they're part of your company or not, they need to be not let unattended and they need to be in a specific area. Now, these days, this is very important in terms of biosecurity programs. We don't want a driver to be just walking all over the feed mill, especially carrying potential pathogens on their clothes, on their shoes. Also, it's very important to weigh the truck as it comes in, weigh the truck as it comes out in order to have the total weight that was unloaded at your facility, either in tote bags or in bulk. And also complete any type of receiving report that you have developed in your company. Also, very important to know that medications should be put more into detail when you're developing that receiving report. In some places, that requires an extra effort in order to comply with government regulations. Here is pretty much a checklist that you could use as a reference in order to create your own for your receiving portion. It is very important to adapt it to the conditions of where you're located. At the end of the day, you need to have your documentation and also checklists for somebody to go in and audit what is going on in order to be able to do everything in an organized way and follow all your standard operating procedures. It is very important to have the essential equipment that is needed for receiving feed ingredients, either in bulk, bags, or liquids. Scales is a key component that can help us for many ways to know how much feed ingredient is coming into your facility and how much final feed product is going out. Also, you need to have the right unloading mechanisms depending on what you have in your feed mill or the way that the trucks come, either a dumping pit or one of those platforms. And in some cases, also grain cleaning equipment, especially if you receive grains that come with a lot of broken pieces, foreign material, and dust, probably might be necessary for storage purposes to clean it before storage. Also, all the different handling equipment that will move that feed ingredient into your facility. Like I said in the previous slide, truck scales are very important for your feed mill in order to keep track of all your inventory of feed ingredients coming in and final product going out. Essentially, you need to have at least one scale that is at the entrance of your facility. In some cases, smaller feed mills might have a scale that is also in the same place where you are unloading your feed ingredients, like you see here in the lower picture. In those cases, those help if your flow of trucks coming in and out is not as high. But if you have a lot of trucks coming in and a lot of trucks coming out on a daily basis, it's better to have them separated. When you talk about scales, keep in mind that they're kind of like your cash register, because they're the ones that will tell you how much product you're buying because it's coming in and how much product you're selling because it's going out. So it is very important to be constantly checking to check its calibration so the numbers are not off. That in some places will vary because some countries will require governments to check how precise those scales are on a yearly or semester base, but it's also recommended that for your own control to check those scales on a quarterly basis. If you have two or more truck scales, you could also cross-check them to see how much their close are in terms of numbers or values that they're given when they're being weighed. Very important to know that never use your customer's truck scale or your customer's truck to cross-check. Okay, that's very important because the weight of a truck will vary depending on the fuel, depending on if they have feed ingredients that are not for you, but they're also carrying into your feed mill. Maintenance and calibration is essential in order to keep those scales as precise as possible. And one recommendation that we always do is to keep scales on an isolated circuit, protect them from radio frequency, static, and other electronic interference, because if that happens, it could alter the values that you're getting, especially if it's a digital scale. When we're talking about the equipment that you need to unload grain in bulk, usually what is more common to see is the dumping pit, and that will depend if you have a truck that unloads from the bottom, like a grain hopper truck you see here on the picture on the left side, or if you don't, the one that unloads from the end of the back of a trailer of that truck into a dumping pit, but you need to have that equipment of a platform to lift it up. What to use will depend a lot on what type of trucks you have in your region. If you could have the hopper bottom trucks, that will probably be the safest way to unload grain. But if you don't have them because the total industry doesn't use them, then you probably might need to have some sort of dumping pit platform or have some sort of unloading system that could pull that bulk grain or soybean meal or any type of product out of it. At the receiving points and those unloading pits, it's key to have dust control systems for two purposes. One, to keep dust from going into the environment and contaminating it, and also to keep the product from losing it, because that's part of your inventory control. So you want to avoid that shrinkage by keeping that dust and inserting it back into your system. When you talk about liquids, the most common way is to pull out on a tanker into your own storage tanks. Some feed mills might have a working daily tank and then also a storage one to keep liquids for a longer time. Any system that you might have, what is important to know is that you need to have a retaining wall in case that liquid spills. You can retain it without leaking out into the surrounding areas where the tanks are located in your feed mill. It is very important to know that you need to have some sort of pump to help those tankers pull out that liquid, and also a pump to move those liquids from the tank into the mixer or directly into the working daily tank if you have that in your feed mill. When you're loading bags out of a truck, it is very important to put them in a pallet because the pallet will help them protect from the floor. As you can see here in the picture on the left, some of those bags are being pulled out manually, and sometimes they rip apart. They put them in the floor where it could be dirty, they could be cause contamination. So as much as you can, you need to create a procedure to be able to unload them, check that the bags are not ruptured when they're being unloaded, handle them with care to avoid damage, and like I said, please put them in pallets all the way in your warehouse. This concludes part 2 of receiving and sampling of feed ingredients. Please continue with part 3.